Hey guys, T2 out here. Welcome back to the Time Predators channel. Recently we did a 20-ish mile bug out slash get home bag last minute adventure kind of camping trip, hiking trip. So today's video we're going over pros and we're going over cons, what worked, what didn't work, what worked well, what did we forget, things like that. What worked well last night slash yesterday?
The biggest the biggest positive we had was the food. After we got done with that, it's close to 10 mile up here, dehydrated, tired, sleepy. So just being able to get some calories in us, being able to eat was big. One of the biggest cons that caused that was the heat and the humidity here in South Carolina. Even on the mountain, it's still ridiculously hot.
Yeah, biggest pro for me was probably my hammock. I'm still working with it. I still think it's the best hammock I've ever owned. I've still never tried the double, but for the single nest, that one worked well. I slept fine. My get out gear down puffy blanket is absolutely wonderful for the temperature that it got. It was probably 65 last night, give or take. 90 throughout the day, 65. We're both went to bed still soaking wet. So little chill to the air, a little chill to us, but it wasn't enough to freeze us. It was just enough. Me and him both like sleeping cold. It was just at that limit. It was just at that point. Pro fuel canister stoves. You might have some issues with that. We'll talk about here in a minute. Fuel canister stove, always recommend. Beats, trying to come up here and build a fire. We had the late night dew come in on us last night while we were night hiking, and everything just was wet. Now, could we have gotten the fire going? Sure, if we absolutely needed to.
Taking into consideration though, we're in the mountains.
Yeah.
There's no sunlight here really to dry things up. We're right beside a creek, so it's really extremely wet stuff.
Yeah.
So this morning, where we cook breakfast, we can cook, eat, pack up, and we can hit the trail and not have to worry about a fire that would be left behind.
Yep.
So though it's one more thing we got to carry, if you really weigh the benefits of it, I think it's better than having a fire. My sleep doesn't work well. I kind of botched the setup a little bit, so I didn't sleep quite as well as I could have. It could have been better, but that's mostly my fault for setting it up a little wrong. My feet were slightly above my head, as I mentioned, I think in the previous video. Mm-hmm. Ideally, I should have got in it, felt it out first, then adjusted if I need to, but I was just exhausted and said, screw it, I'm going to bed. Okay.
Let's talk cons.
So I got a lot of them. The Life Straw bottle that I have here.
Keep going.
It's the Go bottle, and it's great for what it is, right? The problem is, though, you're having to suck this thing pretty hard to get any benefit out of it. So one of the problems is, like, I have 2 or 3 of the bottles. Well, I have no way to get clean water in those bottles once I empty them, because unless I'm going to suck this thing out and spit it into another bottle, don't recommend that. But that's about the only way it's going to happen, because this bottle here, you're stuck with what you got being dirty. The only other thing you could do was take those empty bottles, fill them with dirty water, and continue to fill this thing up. But again, that's a lot of energy that I'm not willing to do, sucking this water through the straw. It's not very easy. There are better systems out there. I'm going to look into getting some of those, not to mention there's lighter systems, easier to pack, but there are better things out there.
It's good when it was good 15 years ago. Technology has improved. All right, so we're going to talk about some things that we forgot, both being prepared and being unprepared. If I dip off, it's because our food is about done boiling, so that's why you'll see me dip off. Things that we forgot on the prepared side, on the unprepared side. You want to go first?
All right, so as most of you know who's watched this video so far, I had 5 minutes to pack. Typically, I like being prepared. If I'm going to go somewhere and I don't have something packed for it already, I like to have a list. Like, I'm going to need this, 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 this. And as I pack, I'll lay it out, cross off the list, pack it, look at it, cross it, pack it. And then I know I didn't forget anything. I have everything I possibly need. So typically, I don't have these kind of issues. But with 5 minutes to pack, that time frame definitely impacts you a lot. Could have been a lot more comfortable if it was more prepared and set up right. And then you have the things I forgot. Lighter. I had no way to start a fire if it was out here, because I usually keep that stuff in my pocket, and I also emptied out all my pockets before I began that video. And forgetting that I emptied my pockets out, I forgot that too. So lighter was left out. Toilet paper. I did not have any toilet paper. I have a giant, essentially baby wipe that's like a field cleaning kit. You just kind of wipe yourself off the sweat and clean yourself up a little bit. So that can double as toilet paper if absolutely needed. But if this was more than 1 day trip, it's not going to do you any good. something to cook in. Had no cook pot, had nothing essentially that I can throw water into and boil it to cook my food, to have clean water if I didn't have a life straw or didn't have some type of filtration system. So my headlamp uses battery, so I did not have extra batteries for that. So now I did have an extra flashlight, a handheld flashlight, which I would prefer over a headlamp in any way.
Would or wouldn't?
Would not. Clothing. So with a time hack of 5 minutes, that's all I got. I could have changed clothes, something silky, something a little, quick dry. But I didn't want to waste any time doing that or packing extra clothes because, one, if I grabbed that, then I forgot something super important, then I'd have felt like an idiot. And then not to mention, like, that's just more room in my bag that's the clothing's going to take up to try to throw something in there to change the next day. It would have been great to have, some kind of quick drying shirt or some type of hiking shorts. Now, I did grab socks because, I am religious about the extra pair of socks. They're definitely feeling great this morning. Wooby sleep system that I brought that I said I didn't need. I did use it last night just because it's easy. But I easily could have gotten away with just having my really thin sleep system that is not even half the size when it's packed up. So that would have saved me some room in my bag for other items. That would have saved me some weight. And like I said last night, it wasn't too cold, so I wouldn't have been upset about not having that thing. The gear sling, we did use it last night because the ground is ridiculously wet. But again, I didn't necessarily need that. I brought paracord, which we could have tied off. I have D-links and stuff like that. We could have hung our gear up using that system. There's one more thing that I packed up that I didn't necessarily need, but it came in handy. And it's one of those things where, like, as you go into the day or pack up, you don't really know every single thing you're absolutely going to need. But if you have an idea of where you're going, how long it's going to take to get there, time frames, all that good stuff. If you have a full picture, you should have a better understanding of what you need. With that being said, that actually brings up my next point here. So along with the 5-minute time hack I'm going to get from here on out packing up, I'm also not going to be told where we're going, what we're doing. So I might regret that. Probably going to regret that a lot. So please like this video so that I can see that I have some support behind that. But mostly because even if I'm mentally prepared for what's coming, then it can influence what I pack, what I'm looking for when I pack. And sometimes in a bug out situation or a go back situation, you don't always have that. I mean, if you're traveling in a different state and all of a sudden now your car breaks down and you're having to ruck it, 50 miles somewhere that you've never been before, you don't know what kind of terrain you're going to see, what kind of environment you're going to be in. So we're going to add that element in there as well, strictly to show the full side of being unprepared.
To only have 5 minutes to pack his bag, he used 2.5 minutes. Very good, but he knew it was an overnight trip. You also thought it was only a 3-mile hiking trip until we got past that 3-mile point. So for, pros and cons, he did fine for, one day, grab some stuff, grab some food, and roll out the door. We live near chemical plants. We live near a nuclear reactor plant. A lot of different train tracks, a lot of different entities that could cause that 5 minutes. Pack your crap and get out. There's no time to sit around going, well, do I need this outfit or do I want that one? Do I want this so you're going to forget things. While we were going over his gear, we got to thinking, how's he going to cook? It would have been difficult. The best thing you can pack is another person. Have them carry their gear. We're splitting gear. We're using my fuel canister stove. We're using my this. But he was carrying some of the other gear that I couldn't fit in my bag neither. One of the water filter videos that we've done while we were up here, spare camera equipment. Of course, you're not going to need that. But his bag has that extra room where I can say, hey man, I got this jacket. I can't carry it. Can you carry it for us? One of my biggest cons is the pack that I'm using, which is the Osprey, like Daylight or something like that. It's a day pack. It's meant to go to Station Cove and then walk out. It's meant to carry a couple sandwiches with the kids. It's meant to carry a hydration bladder and some snacks. It's not meant to carry a hammock, a sleep system, a water filtration system, a this, a that. It's not meant for that. Neither is your pack. Your pack is more of the tactical, looks cool. It's not a hiking pack.
Exactly.
Both of our packs did something that they weren't designed for. They did well, but if this was a 2-day trip, a 3-day trip, a 4-day trip, my pack would be in the trash. That pack is so small, it wasn't riding on my hips. It was riding in the center of my back, about midways up, and it killed my back. My legs were fine after we made it up that giant initial hill. Now, luckily, my pack only weighed less than 20 pounds, but give me back my Kestrel 48, I would have been fine on this trip. My biggest con is obviously getting sick last night. We talk about dehydration. We talk about, low calories. I overhydrated. That is a thing. That is possible. I was trying to keep up with the hydration level that I knew I was going to need because we got out of the car and we started sweating. I had 3 liters before we got started, and then I was at, I think, 2 more liters by the time we got up the hill. 5 liters in 5 hours may be a little too much. I also wasn't as high calories as I should have been. We should have stopped thinking like we could, okay, if we walk faster, if we keep going, we can get to our campsite faster, we can do X, Y, and Z. We should have stopped, sat down for 20 minutes, ate something. That's our biggest thing is my pack is not big enough to pack a lot of stuff. It's made for an overnight get-home bag. So I've got a couple packs of peanuts, 1 Kind bar, and 1 Mountain House. That's not a lot of food. We mentioned it last night. The Mountain House weighs absolutely nothing, but it's only like 600 calories. I toss a MRE in there, at least I've got 12 to 1,300 calories. I'm thinking I'll probably swap back down to my other pack just to give me a little bit more room. That way I can pack some extra food, because right now I'm out of Mountain House meals. Luckily Austin's sharing, but I'm out.
And with those calories, by the way, I'm not sure how accurate my watch is. Right now, I burn roughly about 2,200 calories just resting. That's how many calories my body needs to just live. Well, my watch says yesterday I burned somewhere around 6,500, 6,700 calories. I'm assuming that's including my resting. So you burn 6,000 calories a day. You're putting in 600 calories.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can survive, but you're not gonna be.
You're not gonna have the energy.
Yeah, you're not gonna have the energy to go 12 miles. To finish this trail out up a hill, then back down the mountain afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's assuming you even know how far your destination is. Like, if you don't have that knowledge, that information, you don't know how much longer you're gonna be out here. So then you gotta start thinking, do I need to save these meals? Well, then you're not getting enough calorie intake, and it becomes this vicious cycle of not having what you need. Your body needs this stuff, and it's very high on the importance list. Because I can survive without this hammock. Like, I can sleep on the ground. Do I want to? Heck no. But I can. I can't survive without food.
There's a lot of people out here that are going to tell you, oh, you can survive 21 days, you don't need to eat. That's if you're sitting right here, not moving, and you're constantly maintaining that hydration. That is a straight survival scenario. That's not saying, hey, let's walk 3 miles up a freaking mountain. I can't tell you how bad that is. Okay? Straight uphill for 3 straight miles. It's terrible. At 95 degrees, 97 degrees, 100% humidity. Yeah, good luck going a couple hours without eating. You might be able to sit here for 21 days until your body rots away, but you're not climbing that mountain for 21 days. You're not doing the rest of this trail for 21 days. So definitely pack food and go heavy on the food.
There's a big difference between surviving and living, right? Like, if you're just trying to survive, that's on you. Good, cool. You made it. But in a lot of the cases, like, civil unrest or hostile territory of some sort, like, if you don't have the energy to fight back, which takes energy,
Back or run away.
yeah, or to run away even, like, it takes a lot of energy to do that. If you don't have the calories to do that, then you're not going to be able to do that. So, you might survive a short time, but you're not going to be living.
All right, guys, so that was part 1, day 1, pros and cons. We'll hit pros and cons for the rest of our trip in the car. And yeah, we'll be seeing you like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright guys, pros and cons for day 2 and trip as a whole. Obviously we made it back to the vehicle. Just for those wondering, I do have a vehicle mount, so I'm not using my phone while I drive. Alright, cons for day 2 I would say are more than day 1. Day 1, other than heat and humidity, which played not nearly as bad today as it did yesterday, it was still there. It was a lot cooler today than it was yesterday, so that was nice. Humidity is still high. It's southern and south, and it's going to be high. But going downhill, it wasn't nearly as bad.
Not nearly. So for me, I would say, looking at the whole picture, I would say food.
Mm-hmm.
So between us, we brought 4 meals total. So ideally, we would have had a lot more food to sustain us. Well, for one, because even though it is just a day trip or a night trip, whether you go out, spend the night, come back, that might be the plan, but not everything goes to plan. If something would have happened, and we're stuck out there for a day or two, we essentially had enough food for one night. And even then, it was a very limited amount of one night food. So food was a big constraint, or a big con, I'd say, is not having enough of it. And then, as you mentioned, it was a lot easier getting down the hills, a lot faster getting down the hills. I mean, we did it in, half the time?
Yeah.
Roughly?
4 hours.
Time was a big pro coming down the mountain. I think food and just overall resources was a con.
Con for day 2 that I didn't experience on day 1. We've had chafing issues, but again, I talked about in the last video, not having the room in the new pack to pack underwear, to pack socks. So when we got camp set up, our ridge lines were clotheslines. So both of us took off our socks, we took off our shorts, we hung them up. So those were able to dry out. Now, underwear, I wear synthetics. It was supposed to be a quick drying. They were still slightly damp this morning. But that meant that all night, or all day yesterday of them being soaking wet, and then all night last night, that area did not have a dry atmosphere. And so we're 10 steps in, and you can feel it. It's starting to chafe. And I chafed the entire way. We put baby powders, we put Body Glide, nothing worked. Blisters. I have blisters on my feet. This is the first time I've had blisters since the last time I did this trip solo, and I wore big army boots. When I did it on that trip, it was because of the boots. Now, we wore teeny shoes and shorts because it's 100 freaking degrees outside. So these shoes are not made for mountaineering. They are not made for, going up mountains. Going up was fine, but coming down, I just kept slipping and sliding. I got blisters galore. I do have my Luco tape in case I needed it. But again, lesson learned, you always have to prepare for things like that. Today, not that bad. But had he said, hey, we're tough men, let's turn around and do this again, there's no way I would have been able to. I can man up and I can get through one day of chafing and one day of blistered up. Day 2, though, it's game over.
And so, with that being said, I mean, there's steps you can take to prevent that. Like, I get you don't want your pack to be 30, 40 pounds if it's a night trip, stuff like that. But in reality, a fresh pair of socks, a fresh pair of underwear, if you have the room for it, they don't weigh that much. And that right there can make a world of difference in morale, which will help you through a lot of the tough times.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, this morning, I had extra socks. And my feet were fine. Completely fine. But with that being said, when I picked up my dirty socks this morning, or when I got them off the lawn this morning, they wasn't dry at all. Because then the environment we're in is all moist. Like, the ground is soaked. We're beside a creek. There's no direct sunlight, even though it was nighttime, so it wouldn't matter anyway. There's nothing really for them to dry. There's no way for them to dry in that type of environment. So they were soaked. And then once you put on dirty socks, which isn't really recommended anyhow, and then go for another 8 to 9 miles of up and down hills, and you're bound to get blisters. It's going to happen. Pro about my bag is this big, which we've discussed this a lot. So that allows me to carry more gear that we're going to do reviews on. It allows me to carry some camera equipment, and then if absolutely need be, I can carry extra gear for other people who may have don't have room in their bag, but we really need that item with us, whatever it may be. Con about the bag is that it's not made for that type of environment, that type of hike. So it has that mesh backing on it, and it's against my back the entire time, which really just, it heats it up. My bag was covered in sweat, the bag was covered in sweat, so it's not really made for what we're using it for, but it held up well. It didn't rip, it didn't destroy my shoulders or my traps or my legs too much. So all in all, I think it did well. But again, I would still love to adventure and see some other bags and and try and test them out, see how I like them, and even share them around to see if other people might want to try something out and maybe find a good item that we can all agree on for once.
My bag is, it's a con. We did this type of adventure, and I did it with the get home bag because that's what y'all asked for. Y'all said, hey, which is better, your get home bag or your bug out bag? For this trip, I would have much rather had my bug out bag. Yeah, it was heavier. Yeah, I've got more creature comforts in it, but having those things like socks, like underwear, it would have been hugely beneficial. Like Austin said, if this was a multi-day adventure or we got lost or something happened, we were down to peanuts and trail mix. That pack's just so small, it's hard for me to operate out of it. Even though it is a summertime loadout and I don't need that much stuff in the summertime, it's almost too small. And obviously my biggest con is getting sick yesterday. So I've been doing like a keto diet, low carb. With low carb, when you hydrate, it basically runs through you. Unless you have a lot of salt in your system, that water just runs right through you. I didn't have any carbs in me to soak it up, to retain it, and so it just sat in my stomach sloshing around. And I puked for a solid 4 or 5 minutes yesterday. It was terrible. And that's why we caught it. We caught it early. So obviously a con is not getting the whole trip done, but I think we did enough where we figured out what we wanted to figure out. So that's a huge pro. But yeah, hey, maybe when it cools down a little bit, we'll get back out here again and we'll do the whole thing. We'll see. Yeah, if you haven't checked out the couple of videos that we made from this series, make sure you go check them out. They'll be up here in the link in the corner. We had a good time, had fun, as much fun as you can walking up a freaking mountain. So take that for what it is. If you haven't liked, comment, subscribe, and share, make sure you do that. And until next time, that's all we got.
See ya.
Later.